Hey folks, just a friendly reminder that all shows on the Madness Comic Network are produced by their individual hosts and in no way reflect the opinions of the network as a whole. The statements in the following broadcast are not necessarily the opinions of the Madness Comic Network, its staff, sponsors, or contributors. This show is rated TVMA, as are all of them and all those other letters. Viewer discretion is highly advised, and, just do what Doc says. Read that again. Peace, everybody.
Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, yo, y'all know me, Pops Fans Ant from the Madness Comic Network. The Madness Comic Network coming to Roku. You can check out our preview channel right there, right now. Look, we're bringing all of our content to Roku. I'm excited. You should be too. A shout out to Hart Fisher at the American Horrors Channel, baby. Woo! You know what's up.
Flip City Magazine is just really pulling out all the stops, man. Your guys' production value of this magazine has gone insane. I mean, look at that. I mean, I remember when you guys, it was black and white. Even when it was black and white, I thought your quality was great. But damn, they just really stepping it up a notch. Look at this. James Corbett, boys. James Corbett.
Genuinely cutting. But also funny, and obviously just chaotic and very fun.
I love Flip City. It has brought new types of badassery and integrity to the print medium.
The Madness Comic Network and Comic-Related Madness proudly presents Madness Tuesday Morning Brew. Tune in to our content on Comic Talk with Pops Van Zandt on YouTube.
Oh, what a day, what a day, what a day, what a day. It's Tuesday. Here we are. It's the Tuesday Morning Brew, but oh my God, we got lots of stuff going on today. I don't know if you know what day it is. Do you know what day it is? Today is March 5th. March 5th, 2020 in Path of the Pale Rider is the day that Death went missing. So congratulations on Apocalypse Day. And it also happens to be my birthday. So I have this beautiful light up crown courtesy of my kids that I'm going to wear during the show because I'm queen for the day. So I figured it wouldn't be complete unless I had at least one knife with me. So we have crowns and knives today. And I hope my guest doesn't think I'm absolutely bonkers. It's okay because I am. So let's give a quick update about Path of Pale Rider. We are still waiting on issue 4 books. I wish I could make that go faster. At some point, I will find a printer that can actually deliver. I'm just gonna have to keep looking. The campaign is going along. We are at, I don't know how many days in, but we got 16 days left to go. I woke up this morning to a cancellation and I was like, that's about right. That's about right because it's my birthday. So why should things go the way I want? But that's all right. Keeps me humble. So we are still well above goal, and we've broken a ton of stretch goals. The last thing that we broke was the slice and dice. Slice and dice was at 3,500. I went too far. Push all the buttons. So again, we have unlocked Dwayne Fink, Drunk Extraordinaire as the Joker, and we are on our third bundle of PDFs. So we unlocked the Any One World bundle, the Charter Comics bundle, and of course the Horror Friends bundle. Avalon, Race, and Slaughterville in that bundle. And we have unlocked the 3D wooden disc keychains and the slice and dice. So if you're in the Facebook group for Path of the Pale Rider, start giving me some ideas. I'm looking for thoughts. And so far, we're leaning towards a pineapple. And I either want to light it on fire, smack it with the stop sign. I don't know. People want me to throw stuff at it, do all sorts of stuff. Good morning. Hi, Lou. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Carrie. Good morning, Carrie. Thank you so much. And of course, Al. Wepa, feliz cumpleaños. Thank you. Thank you. So if we keep going, we'll definitely unlock these temporary tattoos. These are going to be super cool. Can't wait. Of course, we still have hot sauce packets, enamel pins, and I think I can finally breathe a little bit this week. And I have some stickers I'm going to add to this campaign as well of Big James Care Bear. So they're really cool. Lacey Kruger did them for me. So thank you everybody who has backed. If you hadn't had a chance to come through, make sure you do so you can see all the cool stuff. The level with the handmade books has sold out. This one is in the all sold out, all gone. However, I have a couple thoughts. I have the ultimate package. There's 2 of these that are gone. There's 3 left. If in another week these have not gone, I will open up the plushies and the mini books from this level for additional backers, because I know these books are super cool and that people want the plushies in the books and maybe just can't afford the kitchen sink tier. So there you go. Everything else I think you can add as an add-on: the hot sauce, the buttons, the glasses. I made those all available. So, and just as a reminder, if you are across the pond, you can still get this, a physical copy should you want. All you have to do is go down here to a note to Canadian international backers, and there is a link to the Laurie Calcaterra collection over on ASAP Imagination, and you can get a physical copy mailed to you. They do international shipping. The rest of these are digital download, but this trade paperback is available. The only thing is if you want some of the merch, if you are a Canadian backer and you want some of the merch, contact me and I can put together a package specifically for you. I weigh all the things so I know exactly how much the shipping is, because I don't want to overcharge you, and I definitely can't afford to undercharge you either. So lots of good stuff. Make sure you go check it out if you haven't had a chance, and I appreciate you. Remember, this is indie comics is where it's at. And with my campaign, you always get more than what you asked for. So all good stuff. My guest today, I'm really looking forward to talking to Ray. We've chatted a little bit in Facebook Messenger, which is also funny because that broke today too. It's been an interesting day, where things just don't go right, but that's cool. Well, we're gonna keep going, and we're gonna stab it in the face and move on with life. So I'm gonna bring in Ray. Let's hang out. Hey, oh look! Yes, I'm so
Happy
happy.
birthday.
Thank you.
Make sure I'm in camera. There I am.
Here you are.
I can't wear this the whole time, but as you said, this will be a memorable one. Facebook's down. It's your birthday. We're wearing party hats. Everybody's winning.
It's that kind of a day, man. So whatever. And I wasn't planning on wearing mine the whole time either. It's probably going to fall off. It says happy birthday. Hey, it says happy birthday. There's no Y. I think it's busted.
Is it? Oh, it's a little broken.
Oh, it's bent.
It's a little broken one.
Just like us.
The effort that counted, I guess.
It's perfect for today. So that's great.
Well, I want to say first, congratulations on your successful campaign currently on.
Oh, thank you.
Pretty awesome.
Thank you.
I really like the story concept of let's just take all of natural reality and take one thing we're all dependent on.
Mhm.
It's almost like Facebook is a great example of that right now, where you take that out, what chaos would it drive? And your comic seems to have that type of thought experiment playing out. It's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, that's it was really fun to kind of walk around in that world and see what chaos would happen. And it's a little scary sometimes, because I think I have accurately predicted how humans would act in that situation. And because we saw things happen, like the pandemic happened after I wrote that, January 6th happened after I wrote that. And it's like, if you read into the comic and you see some of the things that are happening in the background, it's all there. And it better stop. Reality better stop following my comic book, or we're going to be in big trouble, is all I have to say.
There's an ongoing joke with The Simpsons.
Yes.
You've seen that, where
of course,
you've seen a lot on YouTube. They'll show things from the past, and it coincidentally turned out to somewhat turn out that way.
Yes, they have predicted a ton of things.
Yeah.
So it's really, really entertaining. I know someone's like, "You've been more Simpsons than most recently," and I'm like, "That's not a good thing when you're writing about the apocalypse, guys. Let's hope it stops with this, right? Okay.
Hopefully.
So we'll see. We'll see if it keeps going. We're in big trouble. Yeah.
Or you're prepared. One of the two.
Well, in some ways, yes, and probably most ways, no. Slow. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I love having indie creators because I get to pick their brains and find out what makes you tick. And I would love if you would share your origin story with us. So you're a writer, correct? And I have your comic here, Madcaps, that we're going to talk about. But how did you even get into comics? Were you reading as a child? What influenced you? All of that. So let's start at the very beginning. Go all the way back.
Sure. Well, I was born in the distant farm of. Just kidding.
Yes, that's how far back we went.
I'm up in Winnipeg. Oh, side note, I always chuckle at this, even though it's understandable why when in shipping on your campaign it says Canadian and international shipping.
Yes,
I get it because of such the large border. You're making sure it's iterated. Canadian
everybody
part of international. Some people interpret that as not international. That always gives me a chuckle. Anyways, I picked up liking comic books and superheroes in specific through my older brother, and many kids pick up things from their older siblings. And we used to watch cartoons, and if we could get our hand on a comic book, we definitely wear those pages out. I was a big fan. Big influences would be, I'd say, Peter David in the early 90s with The Incredible Hulk. Unfortunately, I probably destroyed the comic, but I had the issue where both Hulks and Banner merge minds and become Professor Hulk, and they had some big impact and influence on me. I've always liked comic books. When I was in elementary school, very few of us liked superheroes. It was almost like a looked down thing for a while. In regards to wanting to write, what do we have here?
Hello, Laurie. Happy birthday, Laurie. You're closer to becoming a walking, breathing corpse. How does that make you feel?
I'm pretty sure the older you get, the more you feel that.
How I feel about that comment. Devil's air. He always
That's
comes on
hilarious.
and he roasts me.
I'd keep it on here. There you go. I'll put it on my shoulder or something. There.
Queen for the day. Don't talk to your queen that way, Devil's air.
That's not going to work.
It was worth a try. Okay, so back to it. So it was looked down upon you in elementary school to like superheroes?
Well, there was just this common trend in my grades, a little bit older and a little bit less. Everybody was trying to be the older grade, so everybody wanted to look more mature. Comics were viewed as immature, so it was popular to not like it, even if you did.
Gotcha. That's sad, though.
Eventually, through cartoons and eventually dynamics that came in through cinematic film and eventually the MCU,
yeah.
There was a big shift, and people suddenly thought, okay, it's okay. Now, that was just in my area. That doesn't apply to the rest of the world, of course. I've been toying around with stories. I play a lot of tabletop RPG. This story is based off of the first successful tabletop RPG I ever ran.
Gotcha.
And
yes, I have lots of questions about that because it's like you're talking about superheroes, and I was like, but this one's D&D.
Yes.
And so we'll talk about D&D and all that good stuff. But continue.
Okay, so the one thing is I've always liked comics. When I was in the fourth grade and a little bit later, I took a comic course up in the area where I lived at the time in Southern Ontario, up here in Canada. I currently live in what we call Winterpeg. It's kind of a joke because...
Did you get snow?
You get, like, in the summer, you get 40 above freezing, and in the winter, you get 40 below freezing. It gets pretty aggressive. Right now, we almost have about 6 inches of snow right now.
Oh, my gosh.
We're almost
70 degrees. It's 70 degrees here, Fahrenheit.
In Fahrenheit? I'm a Celsius guy, so I have a rough idea. It's like half minus 32 or something like that. But, the conversion rate. But anyways, superheroes, I liked making my own comic books when I was a kid, and it's not something I could pursue for the sake of I needed a job and a career. So that was always a hobby. I could never combine the both and make a thing for the public. So
most of us fall into that category where it's like we'd love to do this full time, but just can't afford the time or the the funds to do it.
At the end of the day, like right now, I have a wife and 3 children, and I just have to make sure there's food in their mouth. So they're obviously a priority, not any hobby or passion of mine. But when I was a kid, I made some superhero style comics, which is kind of a segue into what you were wanting to talk about. Although it's possible, I'll use an example like 20 years back, which is the comic, which is now a successful cartoon series, Invincible. It's an example of it is possible to make successful superhero comic books. With that said, you've got to have the top echelon of a gem of a story. This comic I've written, it's the first time I've written for a comic book. And to quote Jerry Seinfeld, Jerry never felt his show, or he felt rather his show was successful because of all the talent he put around him. With that said, when I wrote a story, I invested into talent, and we can talk about the covers in a little bit. On the flip side, again, with the superhero dynamic, I don't want to say it's been done, because there's still lots of things to be done in the superhero realm with comic books. But on the flip side, it's definitely saturated. So if I wanted to, much like anybody who's an artist, be it writing or sculpting or drawing, it's just expressing. If I wanted to express a story, it better be something that leans a little more unique. So I think you and I have something in common there. If you were to pitch and nobody was aware of your book, in my own words, I would say, okay, let's pretend we take out the concept of, as you start decomposing, you don't die. What crazy things would happen? That's a lot easier to impress a person as opposed to, I've got this superhero story. And right away,
And
a
they're
lot
like,
of people will be like, I'll stick with my Marvel, I'll stick with my Image, my DC, my Dark Horse.
That's hard because, and I think it's all in the pitch too, because like superheroes and zombies have all kind of jumped the shark, where they're like,
they need a break.
Overused. You know what I mean? They've been done and done and done and done.
And then people would be in again, you know?
Right. Oh, and Carrie, I'm sorry. Let me show you real quick. I apologize. It was in the chat. So on the campaign, if you go to on the left here, there's a note to Canadian international backers. There's a green link right here called the Laurie Calcaterra collection. That will take you over to ASAP, where you can get a physical copy, international shipping. There you are. So what I wanted to say about that is, it is so hard to pitch something that, like you said, is kind of oversaturated. So what was your superhero character that you were writing, and was there something that, set it apart or made it interesting?
The last time I did a superhero style story, when I was making my own comics as a kid, just as a hobby rather, not a hobbit. But
yes, be a hobbit too.
I could be a hobbit.
Yeah, let's be
hair, hairy feet.
And writing comics. Face. Perfect. That's all we need.
It's really hard, like you said, to sell a story that's themed with superheroes. Even the concept of a comic book, nobody thinks of something like The Walking Dead. They'll think of the TV series before they'll think of the comic book. And you say comic book, it's capes. They don't think, in your case, cowboy hats or cloaks. In my case, it's a very interesting thing. But if you bring something unique, I remember about 15 years back, there was an interview with Todd McFarlane by a fella in Australia, and Todd, he always said anything I did that I considered like unique or revolutionary, especially like the toy line with his early stuff, he would say, it's just clay. I just did cooler shapes. It's almost like, why didn't somebody do this yet? Why here's a vanilla sundae. Why hasn't somebody put chocolate sauce on it yet?
Right.
And something like, I'll use yours as an example. Okay, people are alive. This isn't zombies per se. The people just aren't alive, but they're still here. So here's a giant walking undead, for lack of better wording, grizzly bear. Here's and suddenly, okay, I'm interested in that. It's almost like you have to pitch the story without pitching it as a comic book to eliminate the stigma.
And you have to leave out certain, like for me, people are like, don't compare yourself to Walking Dead, because people have such an image in their head about what those zombies do.
And it's not zombies, arguably.
But it's not.
You could argue it's not zombies.
Right. But it's hard to get around. It's like, it's undead. Well, still same thing. So it's hard to be like, it's a superhero without being like, oh, it's Marvel, it's DC, it's Batman, Superman.
Or even worse, it's not interested.
Right. So how do you get around that?
You just have to have a really good story, and in my opinion, you just have to grind and get yourself out there. This is my first time going at it, so I'm obviously not well versed in this experience. It's just a really fun adventure for me.
That's how it always starts.
Yes.
Starts for all of us. We're like, this is great. We're gonna change the world. We're gonna get our comic. Everybody's gonna read it, love it, and then you're in it and you're like, this is a slog, man. So, but let's segue into D&D. So have you been playing D&D also since you were young, and then, or as an adult? Like, I didn't start to play D&D until last year.
I've been playing for over 10 years now.
Okay.
So that's over a quarter of my
Oh.
life. And it's a lot of fun. I'm an extrovert, and I really like making stories with people. So if I'm a dungeon master in a campaign, in a lot of cases, I've made scenarios or meetings where I've done very little setup, and the players write the story for me. And if you put all the pieces in place, if you know what you're doing, you're complementing what they want to do. It just turns out to be a really nice thing. That's one of the things I like a lot with collaboration and idea, is when you give something and they're able to, going back to the putting chocolate sauce on the vanilla sundae. So,
Stop, Carrie.
so
Yeah. Hopefully they don't go. The chat can be really, really funny.
I'm okay with that.
Like, but sometimes they go off on a tangent too. So I'm like, okay. So
So
we're just already popping off. 28 minutes in, we're already going to go there. Okay.
perfect.
Nice.
So another interesting thing about D&D is, or any tabletop RPG, Pathfinder, Starfinder by Paizo, those are great. You have some mechanics to work with, and you can just make a character. You add some variables and then make a character based off of that. I've heard the phrase creative constraints. A good example of creative constraints: no constraints at all. Imagine a painting in your head right now. It takes a bit to put one together, but if I say imagine a painting with a bucket and on the beach side, you immediately can put it in your head, and here's my picture. Making characters.
Make a character. Yeah,
Make
right.
a character in
Not that
RPG
simple.
is kind of the same. So if you're going to be a barbarian, that's also a knight. That is also a half giant. Immediately your mind goes, how would those make such a character? You're immediately filling in the blanks in your backstory of how this person came to be. I like that kind of stuff.
I was watching a TikTok where it was like two different kinds of character creators, and it's like one is like I'm a dark and brooding rogue who had a hard childhood and lived on the streets, but is half royalty because they're a bastard child and has all these issues. And the other one's like, I'm a tiefling. I don't care. I just show up and I take things. Like
take things and somehow stab if I need to.
He's like, and I just it was fun. I like to do that. They're like, do you have a purpose? He's like, I just go wherever this guy goes.
I'm a kleptomaniac. I enjoy the show.
Right, exactly. Like that's yep. So just kept going back and forth between the two people describing their characters, and it was just funny to be like someone who has the comedic take and someone who's taking like the dark anti-hero take. And
I always like the dark anti-hero take, because most people that fall for me it's entertaining because the archetype, usually the person that makes such a character, they're usually a fan of film between like 1998 and 2003, where everyone wore leather, black, sunglasses.
The Matrix, the Crow,
X-Men, Underworld, Blade.
Underworld.
All of those, everybody's in black and brooding, and it just makes me laugh.
You have like the long hair in front of your face.
No, the emo sweep is a little bit. It fits.
So this was a campaign that turned into a story for the Madcaps, or?
Yes.
So were you a character or were you the DM in this one?
I was the game master, yes.
You were the game master.
The only thing that's different, this is like when you have like a session 0 in a longer campaign, usually everybody will have their backstories put together and whatnot.
Right.
This mini-series is based off of that session 0.
I'm going to put it up here so people can see some of this beautiful art and we can talk about it.
Do you know the name? Well, that's Jimbo Salgado who made that for me. I was very lucky to get him. The person who colored that is Dan Kemp, who's done roughly 100 issues of Spawn.
Mm-hmm. Yay, thank you.
Big fan. So these 4 characters are your main characters, and they're very different, not just visually, but personality-wise. Their only common core thing is that they're all childhood friends from the same area, but they're They're very different. The only thing that really made them friends at the start is they're in a city that's predominantly human, but none of them are humans.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's appreciating this cover. It's really nice. So we have a dwarf, a weir, W-Y-R, is that
Yeah,
correct?
so that's the fella in the back with the red
He's
cape.
like the dragon lizard Godzilla?
He's a descendant of a large kaiju kind of electric eel.
Okay. That's what I kind of took it as.
Like a
As I was like,
snake,
he's kind of like
basically.
Godzilla in some of his abilities.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. What is the small fella?
He is a half dwarf. His mother is a gnome. So he can't grow a beard, and he's a little lighter than a dwarf. He's a little shorter than a dwarf too, but he has his mother has abilities on nature and wildlife, like magic, almost like intrinsically. He appears to have developed a similar style of influence over like metals and crystalline structures. So you can see that little telescope poking over his shoulder there.
Yes.
He's rigged that to blast raw arcana out of it. Kind of like how War Machine has his own little shoulder cannon.
I was like, is he what do they call that? My brain. I'm not a huge D&D like it's artificer.
You could argue that, yeah. If you were to transfer this to D&D, I think that would be the closest equivalent. Yes.
Gotcha. And this character over here, what kind of character is he? What kind of creature? I
don't see your mouse. You're the purple.
The blue one?
The one in blue. Okay, so he is a special type of elf.
Is he a dark elf?
Arger. So Argers they're a style of or a type of elf that moved out into a mountain range that has heavy amounts of silver deposits. Much like in real life with humans, high exposure to silver on your skin, or if you ingest it enough, it actually will tap to your cells blue. There are humans that have done that before. Anyways, in this realm, what's that, sorry?
I said they usually die at that point.
Well, they're elves, so.
Right. I mean, with the humans that have done that with those, what's it called? Silver. It's like a liquid that they drink.
Yeah, what they do is they, using a current, they break the silver down into the liquid and drink it.
Yeah, and it turns you blue.
Yes.
And your liver dies.
Over the generations of exposure.
Colloidal silver, that's it. Thank you. I watched a documentary on Max about Mother God, the cult of Mother God.
I don't know that one.
Oh, you gotta watch it. They're nuts. But yeah, their cult leader died. She was blue at the end. It was bad.
That's amazing.
Bad. I gotta catch up in the chat here. It says all black and D&D does not sound like 50 Shades of.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you. Karen and I do not share a birthday. However, I do share a birthday with the first day of the apocalypse in Path of the Pale Rider. Death Goes Missing, March 5th, 2020. Of course, Chris also says those colors are amazing.
You can thank Jimbo Salgado. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Not Jimbo, sorry. Dan Kemp. My apologies.
What's that? Dan Kemp?
Dan Kemp.
Yeah.
Did the colors. I said Jimbo. Karen
probably has 2 birthdays. Like she will celebrate her birthday and her half birthday, like with the same importance.
In Poland, they have a birthday and a name day.
Oh.
So instead of the day you were born, one day of the year is dedicated to Phillips, and one day is dedicated to.
Is it like a Saint's Day?
Well,
like you celebrate
everybody. So my wife is half Polish, so our kids have their own name days. So you look up what day is my name fall on, and you can see it online. And
that's fun.
That's like
I'm half Polish. I don't get that. That's not fair. Dad, I blame you. Why don't we
birthday does lie on the apocalypse, though. I mean, that's kind of impressive.
Of course, I wrote it that way on purpose. So
that's okay.
No icing on the cake, only mayo. That's disgusting,
mayo
you guys. All right. So I play D&D. It's a role play game called Slaughterville. So it's based in a town where everybody Like all the 80s slasher movies walk around in this town. And
Nice.
so we just finished up a one-shot campaign where it was myself and Pops Van Zant. Our two characters were inside this haunted asylum, and we were trying to figure out a way out so we didn't get disemboweled by the surgeon, right, who runs the asylum. And so my character's name is Karen. Her name is Karen Needlemeyer III, and she's an heiress to a Mayo Empire mayonnaise. So that's what they're talking about. And
That's hilarious.
She's every bit of a Karen, as her name implies. She asked for the manager.
Oh, nice.
We had fun with that. So, oh, thanks, Chris. Chris says he signed up to be notified. This looks interesting. I'll be looking at it.
Thank you, Chris.
closely.
Really appreciate that. If you stick around too, there'll be some. We'll show a couple of pages here coming up.
Yeah, I'm going to show some more, but I'm not going to show you all of it.
Sure.
I got to read this first issue, and it's a trip, you guys. So you should definitely go sign up for notification, because this is going to. I can see. I have an idea where it's going, but I think Ray's going to trick us all. I don't know.
There's
Especially
definitely
when it's
some
based on the start of the game. You could re-roll new stories. Anywho, let's keep going. You could all look like Nebula. That's funny.
Everybody bald and blue with the silver. I get it.
Ha 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 ha. All right, so let me we'll keep going. Okay, can you read this to us and explain?
Oh, okay. You know what? I didn't anticipate showing this page, but that's all right.
Oh, you don't want me to show
okay.
it? You know, look at it, people.
The damage is done. They're gonna pause it and read it. Go back. I'm gonna take over.
Like you saw nothing.
You saw everything. Okay,
but I want to talk about it.
Okay, so there is a fella, one of the fellas, which is the half dwarf. His name is Dananini, and this is a quote. At the start of the comic, it talks about him. We'll just say getting the band back together. So getting these friends together. I also have to disclaim, this is an exclusive. I haven't shown the interiors to anybody other than my publisher or anybody I worked with. So everybody looking at these couple of pages here, this is a first. So I should have said that first.
I did not realize. We are honored that you are sharing this with us first. Thank you, Ray.
So Dunnan has found some employment, as it is mentioned in the comic, and he wants these people together. One tough thing, and I'm sure you've done this with writing, one tough thing is to not be heavy on one character or heavy on another character. In this case, I mean, I feel Dunnan has expressed a healthy amount in the comic, but I felt putting this at the start put a little bit more focus on why everybody was coming back together. So that was the main reason I did that. So he has, his father is a dwarf, and family's very important to him and his clan. So it's just him talking about, like, I'm not abandoning I'm not forgetting family, but these guys are very important because of their actions, regardless of what you would name them. So here's 3 random names. You could name them this. I would still be doing this for them. This isn't about name. It's about their actions. That's the short version.
Can I read it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's borderline poetic to me. Father, this is not about our name. This is about their actions. You must understand that these 3 have done just as much for me as any relative has. I would be doing this for them even if they were named Brad, Daryl, and Scott. That's why I was like, okay, who's Brad, Daryl, and Scott? I wanted to know if there was extra meaning there. Or like, those are the names of the guys that you actually play D&D with, or...
I do not play D&D with those 3 names, that's for sure.
But do they mean something? You don't have to tell us what it means, but do they mean something?
Well, from Dunnan's view, there are 3 random names. Anybody that happens to be named.
You're being very elusive, Ray.
I can directly tell you that Dunnan randomly made up those names.
Gotcha. So you're not telling me. Okay. Plead the 5th. All right. All right. So we are now in the beginning of the story. I'm only going to show a couple more pages because you get to see, of course, the main characters coming into town. And I love the little the banner lettering because you're seeing a couple of these characters talk to each other, but you're also hearing from another main character with these little banners. So it's like you're introducing them all at the same time pretty much, which is difficult to do.
Almost. Yeah, almost. The one thing, so 2 of these characters are coming into the town of Ivywood.
Mm-hmm.
I had again, that focus and that balance of characters. It made sense if I had one person narrating this for this book, that I chose Chasgo, the blue-skinned elf.
Why though?
Well, basically, I wanted to show things through his view. He is the least. He is the most passive, I guess is the best way to put it. So he is. I wouldn't say pacifist, obviously, but he hides himself. People are scared of his kind. So those blue-skinned elves, also known as Argers, they're considered xenophobic, if you will. They want nothing to do with outsiders. And that silver in their skin, it makes them very resistant to magic. They actually believe that, although it's half true, they worship the mountain, and they think it's blessings from the mountain as to why they're resistant. But in reality, it's just the silver they're exposed to. So they actually view magic as, for lack of better wording, types of abomination. So he, being his exposure to magic and being able to actually cast a few things, he left the mountains. Everybody's scared of Argers. They're like childhood stories. So he actually hides himself to fit in. But because he's pretty charismatic, he decided to, I'm not going to say infiltrate, but he actually has found employment through the local nobles. He actually represents nobles, which is hilarious because if anybody at any time was to expose them, that could be a very big problem for him.
Oh, no. Will you do that to us someday? I'm sure it'll be like, da-na-na-na, like, oh, no.
That is an interesting concept. He's very, I mean, he's very talented in a lot of ways, even having these resistance to magic, but he's also, in a couple of ways, almost embarrassed of himself. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Here's one dynamic about myself. I use the example of liking comics when I was younger. That was looked down on. I think everybody can relate in some way or some form of, I won't show this part of me, at least yet.
That's me and my entire nerddom when we go to like the neighborhood barbecue or like the street party, and people are all getting to know each other and talk to each other, and I just I don't volunteer what I do until someone asks what I do, and then I like blurt it all out, and then they look at me funny. So that's great and awkward.
And it's funny, you watch reactions of people. If you were to just boldly say, I do X, Y, and Z, you can get a good gauge who's, for lack of better wording, appalled by that kind of stuff.
Usually everybody, because I'm like, I write comic books, I stab things, and I bake on the side, and they're just like,
sounds interesting.
I don't know how to process what you just said.
To quote my older brother, you need weird friends. So the weirder the better. As long as we're all treating each other good. Yeah, let's bring on the weird. What's that? You crochet and you shoot skeet? Awesome. I want to hear all about it.
Exactly. That makes life so much interesting when you have.
I don't do either of those things,
right?
But I'm definitely interested in hearing about
that. No, I had one lady that was like, "Oh, you write books?" She was like, "What kind of books? Like romance novels?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "No, I do not." I was like, I don't even want to tell you what I write because you're just going to be appalled. She's like, books. And I was like, try again. I was like, let's change the subject. But this is beautiful. Like the panel work, the action in it. It flows very nicely. So I like how you guys also switch between the font types for the different characters and bubble styles, so it's very easy to tell who's talking.
I wanted it to be very I wanted the visual of the different font to put in your mind their different voices. When you go back to older comic books, they were all the same, and you had to improv in your mind who sounded like what. But I remember a couple of times seeing a cartoon of something I've seen in a comic, and the voice was completely different to me. So I remember reading comics about, say, Venom, and then the first time Venom was shown in a cartoon was in the 90s. I didn't imagine, although it's really cool, I didn't imagine it would be like 3 voices talking at once.
Yeah.
And when I hear it, okay, I wish I could have somehow heard that through what I was reading, but I couldn't. So I tried to make the ones that were the most unique try to resonate in some way, and then everybody else kind of sounds somewhat normal. Like Dunnan doesn't sound that different from anybody else. But
Gotcha.
the interiors here were done by Evan Quiring. He has Cyclone Studios. You can look up Murder City Devil or Lucha Mysteries. I was very grateful to get him for this issue. Like you were saying,
how did you guys meet? I'm going to take this down so I can see you a little better. While
I hired him as an artist for a board game I'm working on, which is on the back burner because I'm focused on this comic right now.
Oh my goodness. Do you sleep, Ray?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like between comic book and a tabletop game, and then 3 kids, full-time job.
Yeah.
There is no sleeping. Sleeping is for the weak. I understand.
I do sleep. It's these things, even this book, me promoting now, I treat this as leisure. So
Yeah.
I am getting rest. It's just, I guess technically I'm working a long time. It doesn't feel like work.
That's a good answer. I like that. We're still having fun. We're having fun while we do things. So.
Exactly. I'm not weathered down, as you put it earlier.
Shh, we will. We'll get there someday, but not today. Okay, so you met your artist via this board game you're working on?
So I needed an artist to make the art essentially for different characters, and I found him online and contacted, and he was happy. I wanted a comic style, so I looked up comic artists that are local to myself, and I was really happy with the work. And I was always thinking about this comic, the script in my head, and we talked about it a bit, and here we are. I started with the interiors. I didn't have a colorist, a letterer. I didn't have any covers or anything else. I had a script, and eventually the interiors, and I branched out from there. I was I've been picking away at this issue for over 2 years now. I've been very careful about it. I've wanted. I don't believe in half measures. I've said this before to others, but if I'm going to do this, I don't want to do 60% of the job and be like, well, you can imagine the rest. It would have been good if. So I've wanted to launch this thing for like 1.5 years, but it wasn't ready. So I was happy to grudgingly wait and get the right product. It's obviously done now, and we're launching in April. But even with that said, reflecting a little bit earlier, talking about it not feeling like work, it doesn't feel like 2+ years. It feels like it's been an enjoyable stretch. It feels like playing a D&D game where I remember all of these meetings. Yeah, I remember all these things that happened in this campaign. Yeah, well, that's 2.5 years ago. It doesn't feel that long. And that's kind of how it feels for this project for me.
I find that too, where it's like, it feels like it's been 10 years in 3 weeks, all at the same time.
Yeah, I get that.
It's weird where it's like, oh, we just started this, but it feels like we've been doing this and working on this forever, that it's, it's such a passion project that we just keep pouring ourselves into it. But yeah, it's, the time just doesn't pass correctly anymore. I think since COVID, it's been messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, I call that the time warp.
The what?
The great time warp from 2020 to 2023, 2022.
You were talking about this. My
It
editor
feels
and
like
I.
Lost time, and it didn't exist.
It was like there were so many things that happened in a short, like big monumental things that happened in a short amount of time, that our whole it seems it's warped now, because when all that happens, it's like it was all 1 week instead of 1 year. It felt like it was just a really long, because it was all crammed together.
Yes.
And then after that, it's like none of that year felt like very long. It was just so quick. Even 2021 things were still happening.
Yeah.
So
There's
it's like those
going
whole
on.
2 years, it was like, I don't know. It seems like it was yesterday. you know? 2 years. Weird.
Yep, just gone.
4 years. God.
I saw a meme the
Where are
other day.
we?
I saw a meme the other day, and it said, when I think 10 years ago, I think it's 1993. But in
Yes.
reality, 10 years ago was 2003.
Isn't that terrible?
But that's 20 years ago, not 10
It's
years.
20 years ago. 2013.
I tell you, it's a pleasure to age. Nowadays, if you go back a couple of centuries, you know, you and I would be elders at best.
Yeah. Or
At
we'd be
best.
dead.
Yeah, one of the two.
I would have been dead. I would have been dead a long time ago.
But it's a pleasure to age nowadays. A lot of people are scared of mortality, but just like anything else, it's an adventure, and there's a beginning, middle, and end, and you just got to make do with all the fun stuff. And that's kind of, if I know correctly, that, or if I'm assuming correctly, that would be a common theme in some form in your own book, in Path of the Pale Rider. Make do with what you got.
Well, it's in, you know, there is no escape in my book. And so, I mean, like, this is one of the concepts I was exploring yesterday with social media. It's like, which would you prefer? An apocalypse where everything ends quickly, like nuclear apocalypse, everybody gets blown to smithereens.
Giant solar flare, we're all
Giant solar
wiped out
flare,
right
you
away.
can't escape it, right? Like the knowing.
Except for
Ice
maybe
age,
this
second
month.
ice age, and then it's like
Right.
Snowpiercer. You crash the train, and you're done, right? Or an apocalypse that you can never escape, which is hard.
It's an awesome concept for something unique brought to the comic book table, and
I hope so. I think so, but
that's what I tried really hard to do with mine. It's not that I'm not, although I'm obviously interested to see what it does for interest. What my challenge is obviously I talked about the expression, but also is it worthy of the market, regardless of how successful it is? Could I do something that people aren't going to look at it and say it's been done? Could I just do something that people look at it and say, well, it's kind of like this and this. Well, I can't really compare it to too much. Maybe a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it definitely, in my opinion, it doesn't feel like a knockoff, and that's why I pursued this rabbit hole, for lack of better wording.
Yeah, and I feel you. There's this fine line of trying to describe your project through previous projects so people can understand it. You know what I mean? Because it hasn't been done before. How do you communicate to someone what it is? You know, if there's nothing to compare it to. But you want to make sure that they understand it's like these things, but it's none of these things as well.
Right.
So
that's a tough go.
The elevator pitch is the hard thing in the beginning, but then it's like once you get it down and it flows, it definitely is an asset that you can just be like, this is what it is, you know? So what is the pitch for Madcaps? Because we've kind of talked about like the D&D kind of style, and then we have these characters, but pitch the story to us so we know kind of the arc and what we're getting ourselves into.
I want you to imagine your closest circle of friends. The older you get, the less you get to see them.
Okay, true.
When you do get to meet up, even if it's only like, let's say 60% of the good old days, for lack of better wording.
Yeah.
You're recharged from that experience. When you're around your friends, usually you are more like your inner child. And you're more inclined to do things because of their influence, be it good or bad. And I wanted to reflect people, 4 friends put in a scenario, and if a couple things happen around them, because of how they know each other and their influence on each other, how would they work together to solve a problem like that? It's in a fantasy setting. All of the characters are non-human, and they're definitely all unique from each other, visually and personality-wise. It's a 3-issue miniseries, and there is no expectation going into it. It's not like watching the 460-second MCU film and hoping this one thing happens with that character, or we're going to riot. You can actually just enjoy it.
That's one of the benefits of being indie, is that people don't have a high expectation of what you accomplish in an issue.
So I never read Invincible when it came out, but I saw the cartoon first, and wow, I had no idea what I was getting into, and I enjoyed it. And my intention is with my comic to have a very similar thing. No expectations, and were you satisfied by the end of it? The 3 issues are 3 acts, and the final act has a very solid, hard payoff.
I'm afraid of where you're going to do these characters. I feel kind of attached already. And then
like
kind of where you left us at the end of issue 1, I was like, need to know more, but there's definitely something else going on that you haven't revealed yet. So
well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like I said before, this is my first time writing, so I it's always good to hear that feedback, that constructive criticism. Weak here, strong here, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun ride.
Yes, yeah, I'm definitely enjoying the entire process, the payoff. When I finally got a digital copy, the PDF, I got that like a couple hours before you. There was a hiccup. I had to get it fixed. And I got people to actually just go through it and say, "Wow, I've reviewed comic PDFs for people, and my piece is there. It's a PDF. I'm not saying I did it. I'm not saying I'm the man, but it was cool to go through that process and actually go through that experience." You mentioned getting attached to characters. Anyone in specific that you like?
Well, I mean, they all have their pluses and minuses. I don't want to spoil anything, but of course the Godzilla moments are super cool. So when it comes to the action, like 100%, what is his name?
Madrakis.
He's such a
snake.
And like I like the how the art also fills in on their relationship. So while they're having a conversation, like they're fist bumping, and it's like, okay, they're bros. You know what I mean? Like they've done this before, and they're playing good cop, bad cop, and you know what I mean?
I actually have it. I don't have it done yet, but I have a teaser trailer coming out. I got a pro voice actor to read out that script of that scene you're talking about. We'll call it the interrogation.
Yes.
And the last words in that is the words "the dwarf." We can't talk too much about it here, but that is going to be a teaser for this coming out at the end of the month.
There's going to be some screaming in there, people. Sorry. But I like the relationships between them all, but I think the Weir is definitely the cool one of the cool characters. I really do like Madraken.
I think
not that the other ones are not bad, you know what I mean? Like they all have their relationships and their pros and their, but I mean, like he's just a kick-ass character, I think.
The one thing I like about him is usually in comics, the big guy is usually kind of oafish and nothing more than a meat shield. But his most intimidating thing is actually his brains, even though he's very imposing. He actually, like you see at one point, it's obvious he has some abilities in the arcane. One involving fire, which I won't say too much here, but it's very obvious. There's more to show after this issue. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, we definitely haven't seen. We have not seen what Chaz can do. You know what I mean?
Not too much.
Because he was hiding.
Yeah, he has a persona. He can disguise himself magically. He's got a couple things, but you're right. And again, going back to that character balance, that was also another reason I wanted him narrating it. Because I wanted to make sure they were all involved in some type of balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like how the dwarf,
Sarlacc,
the way that he talks, because it's I'm reading it in Scottish accent in my head.
Of course. Yes.
Like, I cannot do it. I can't do a Scottish accent. I cannot. And I was like, that's great. That's the thing. I can hear it in my head. So I'm looking forward to seeing these 4 accomplish what they set out to do at the end of the issue, and get some more answers. I like what you did with the interrogation as well, because people think they have figured it out. And I thought I had figured it out too. I'm like, oh, it's this. This is the reason behind the problem. But you twist it in a way where I'm like, oh, well, I guess it's not. You know what I mean? Because this guy and this guy were both part of the problem, but they had completely different outcomes. So what is it? What's the cause? You know, I don't want to spoil. I'm sorry, you guys, if I'm being vague. You got to read it. You got to read it.
You're doing a good job, given just enough.
Just enough.
Going on that scene that we can't talk too much about, which you're obviously it's inferred what you're thinking at. I wanted the story to be unique enough where it wasn't like an it's done, and I think that variable you're talking about, I don't think that's been done anywhere. That's how I hinged that story accordingly.
Gotcha. Here's the link, everybody. It's also in the show description. So if you have not signed up for the Madcaps yet, make sure you go hit that green button. All you're signing up for is just to be notified when Ray launches it, and then you can go check out the campaign and find, which one works for you. We have not seen all the variant covers yet. Of course, there's this beautiful. This is the main cover, I'm assuming. A cover, which is gorgeous. So
now, I'm not a big fan of. I mean, all the power to people that do it, and they're very successful for doing it. I'm not a big fan of having oodles, canoodles, and toaster strudels of variant covers.
Toaster strudels. But you list A, B, C, and D.
Yes. Now you don't have. I swear, I thought I sent them to you. You know what? I can send them to you right now if you'd like.
Sure.
Reply.
Hold on, let me take this off the screen. I was gonna say I didn't think they didn't come with the PDF.
My apologies on that. I'm gonna go Canadian and apologize.
Ah.
Let's see what we got here. There's one. It is. I'm not even gonna try Facebook right now.
Yeah, I was just like, just send it to my email if you could.
I'm not even going to tempt the fates, as they would say.
I know poor Ray and I were conversing via Facebook Messenger, and right before the show I was gonna go say hi and check in, and I was like, it's all down. I was like, of course it's my birthday and everything's going wrong. So
well, your birthday is the apocalypse, so Facebook was just celebrating that by causing some chaos.
Today is the first day of the actual apocalypse.
There's just planes crashing outside our houses.
Yeah,
and we don't know.
Pops was like, you know what? I think Twitter is going. No, YouTube is having issues now too. So it's something going across and that. And I was like, good times. Apocalypse is starting on my birthday.
All right, almost loaded here. I'm going to send them to you.
Okay.
While this is loading, I just wanted to give a shout out. I'm very grateful for Philbo Publishing and Philbo Russer who took a chance on me. This is my first time writing, and I got a publisher. Apparently, that's not common. I'm just very, very grateful, and make sure to check them out. They have some pretty cool stuff, which I've reviewed. Sending. That is sent to you.
And I would also like to give a shout out to Corissa Grant. Her Kickstarter launched last night. She's already funded. She has like 50 backers already. It's insane. So if you haven't had a chance to go check out Corissa Grant's campaign, the cover that I like so much with the salamanders is this issue. Gotta love those salamanders. Loading.
So again, going back to all the different variant covers.
Yeah.
I did 4 different variants, and then the main is all the characters. Each variant is one of the different characters, and basically it was the first time being shown to the audience, so I wanted to make sure that they had each one had its own individual spotlight. For issue 2, I think I'm only going to have 3 covers total. I wanted to make them all. I want the covers to be relevant to the story. So first appearance, all these characters, there's a first appearance image. But next issue. I think three covers, and I already know what they're going to be because I know what they're going to be like in the story.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It has not come through yet, by the way. The internet is angry today. I'll just keep my eye on my email when it comes through.
Hold on. I didn't send it to you. Hold on.
I've done that twice this week where I'm like, I went back to Carissa's and I looked at it. I was like, nope, I had to push the button again. Like, I forgot to push it.
No.
I was like, I'm back at 21. She's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I am.
Hold up. I'm going to cry like a child right now.
Don't cry. Don't cry.
You can't tell me what to do.
Don't cry tonight. Sing some Guns N' Roses then.
This is... Okay, I found your...
Yay, thanks, Carrie. Yay,
there.
That's exciting. I'm so glad you did.
Allow...
Hi, Grey Wolf.
Allow anyone...
Oh, are they? Are they back up? Okay, good.
Send. My apologies. I'm back.
I love our chat.
I think it's going to work now. There's too many. There's so many variables. Usually I complain about having different ways to message, but in this case I was grateful because of Facebook's catastrophic failure today.
I know. And I was like,
respect to your birthday and the apocalypse, of course.
I think that my birthday crashed the internet.
I'm okay with this. It's definitely pretty awesome. Did it come
All
through?
right, I'm not that popular, people. Come on, load.
So
there it is.
You got it.
Hooray.
Beautiful.
Let me get it up here. We're gonna take a look at it. Ooh.
So I was talking before about investing in talent. The interiors are obviously did that, but I got some. There's actually some personal relevance in some of the work here.
Tell me more.
Well, if you show it, go ahead. You're I'm not hiding or anything. It's definitely, you're welcome to put it up here. I can talk about each one individually.
Let me see. I'm missing one. A, B, C, D. I'm just gonna get them all loaded and then I can switch between them. Oh, that one's cool.
That's probably the one of Sarlacc, I'm assuming.
Yes. All right, and there's that one. Why? Okay. Thanks for bearing with us. There we go. I was like, this one's cool. They're all cool, but I was like,
so that's Sarlacc. Now, Sarlacc, he comes from a family of a clan of dwarfs, I should say, that left the mountain and wanted to farm. The funny part about dwarves wanting to farm, well, they're pretty stubborn, so they decided to make a settlement in the middle of a swamp and over time develop the swampland into farmland, basically terraforming the surrounding area. Because of that, they get really good at tracking and pacifying things that go bump in the night. Now, he felt he had a calling to be a good example in Ivywood, a beacon of light, as he likes to call it. So he actually has some divine influence. So that axe there is actually a holy weapon. And in this image, he's actually slaying an unholy creature. I wanted him, being a shorter character, I wanted him to have some type of a statement for his single image. So here's a larger character and almost like a David and Goliath. Yeah. And, I wanted to make sure that he looked like he was comfortable by himself, which it definitely, he doesn't look like he's upset or anything. He looks like, oh, this is Tuesday.
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
This is drawn. This is also colored by Dan Kemp, who did the other cover, but this is drawn by Javier Sol Terres.
Okay.
He drew the first year of Ghost Rider Volume 2, where Dan Ketch took over as the writer. And that was the first comic series I started collecting from start to every month, every issue. And that is one of the first, that artist, what I'm seeing there is one of the first artists to have an impactful influence on me. And so to have him draw...
And here you are doing your story with that artist. That's amazing.
So to have him draw a character of my creation, I've said this to people before, this is the equivalent of having a very successful band perform a song that I've written.
Yeah, amazing, and almost surreal to have that feeling. Or
Yes, definitely. And the funny part is, I described to him what I was thinking, because I was talking about how I wanted him to, although small, I wanted it to be a statement and show that
yeah,
regardless of his size, he's not imposing, but he's not a weakling either. I made this description of like swinging his axe and knocking over a bunch of ghouls, and some in the background trying to jump on him. And he said, okay, I'll see what I can do. He gave me a mock SketchUp of what we're looking at now as the end result. And my reaction was, this is nothing what I asked for, but also shut up and take my money.
Exactly.
So,
I was like, I don't think that's what he did, but
he was a lot smarter to show such an intimate statement with 1-on-1 on a bigger creature as opposed to a bunch of smaller ones. And he obviously, the man just knocked it out of the park. And then it was just amplified by Dan Kemp's colorings. I'm beside myself every time I look at this. I'm just wow, you know. I have the original black and white ink in here at my house.
That's awesome.
It's really, really awesome. That's nothing short of awesome.
All right, everybody, here's my favorite character.
So this is Madcaps. Now that image there is hand painted.
Is it really? Oh my god.
Yes, that is done by a man named John Zalesnik. Laurie, you played NES back in the day?
Yeah, of course.
Shinobi, you know that one?
No, I don't think so.
It almost is always hiding in the shadow of Ninja Gaiden. Everybody knows Ninja Gaiden.
Everybody knows Ninja Gaiden,
Well,
right?
Shinobi, the cover art to that game was painted by the same guy that painted Madcaps here.
Oh my gosh. How are you affording these people? That's what I want to know. Well, we can talk about that later, but
like
oh my gosh.
It took me 2+ years, so I've been very patient. He's painted images for a lot of video games over the time. There was a franchise called Worms from the late 90s, early 2000s.
Familiar with Worms.
Warhammer, Chaos Gate. There's recently a sequel that came out, but he painted the cover for the first one in the late 90s. He's painted a bunch of images for Magic the Gathering. As you can see, the style fits very well.
I can definitely see that. This looks like it's a Magic card for sure.
The one thing I really liked with what he did is they're both good for different reasons. The first one where I had Sarlacc, here's the image, shut up and take my money. The process was very different. And they were both good for different reasons, but he gave me like 4 different poses, 4 different backgrounds, additional suggestions as it came together. And because I'm not an expert in coloring, it was kind of a scary ride for me because I've seen his work. I know his potential. But sometimes, if you've ever seen a professional color, they'll slap a color down that doesn't make sense to be there. But when you put other colors, it complements, and then it looks like what you want. I was going through a lot of that with him, and I was very anxious. But the end product was just stellar. Even little things like he added like lightning in the eyes at the end, or you can see on the barrels there's actually a noble seal on there. Which is actually when you see Chazgo hold up that voucher to the farmers, and that's the same logo there to try and give it a continuity. Bear. It is an animal paw, but I'm not going to say what animal it is.
I was like, so you know me and bears, right?
Yes. We'll call it the James print. How's that?
Run away.
James's seal.
The seal of James.
Depending on what comes out here. That noble, maybe he may be named James. Maybe we'll do that for an Inuit.
That would be awesome. Anything bear related named James going forward is always a bonus. Makes me laugh. But this is gorgeous. I didn't realize he had hair until I saw this. I was like, does he have hair? He has hair.
They're almost like tendrils. Would be considered like hair. Yes.
And what is his sword made out
That has not been explained yet. But
Ah.
that's the first time you've asked. So there's actually a mix of different things. That actually was a gift from Dunn and Eni, actually. There's a lot of relevance in that blade, which I can't dive into all of it right now.
No, don't. No spoilers.
It's made out of, there's different elements in it. The two big ones of significance is silver and obsidian, giving it that purple color.
What is going on in the corner over here by my... Keep getting balloons. All right, moving on to the next cover. Ah!
Speaking of
his Canon telescope is smoking, and
if
we're
you look in
looking
the foreground, you'll see the tree he just shot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did he shoot through something that we're looking through?
So this image was done by Jennifer Stark. She is in New York. This is a digital drawing, but it was made to look like it was painted. I've seen a couple of images that she's done before online, different things like Gandalf the Grey, and I really like that style, and I thought it would be very fitting for a cover here. So what else can I say about this image?
Is it the moon behind him?
I like the moon. I like the expression on his face because this is the first time that he's used it. It's almost like I can't believe it actually worked.
Right. That's the joy I feel when I smash pumpkins and watermelons in my backyard.
You know what? When my parents had a farm, and when I was an adolescent, I may have made a potato cannon or two.
Yes, there you go. So this is your expression as well after shooting the potato cannon. He's just
yes.
like, wow.
I've had friends. We've participated in odd scenario pyrotechnics and combustible equipment.
Yes.
We all have our fingers and eyes, so fortunately.
Yeah, exactly. You survived it all. He also has this hammer. We didn't talk about it. I don't know if we should, if it's a
actually
spoiler,
just a regular smithing hammer. The reason it's glowing
Really?
is, as I was mentioning, he has influence on different metals and crystalline structures. One of the things he can do is he can actually like cause it to start burning, so it's red hot.
Oh gosh.
So the reason I asked for it there is it was another dynamic light source to add to the picture. That
Yeah. He's just so excited that he just accidentally activated the power. He's like, wee.
I really like the contrast of him using that. He needs his goggles on to use that. If you look through the comic book, you'll see anytime he's using that telescope, his goggles are on. They're actually one piece, if you will.
Gotcha. I was just laughing at his eye, looking at the. He was like, whoa.
It's really funny that he's less than 4 feet, so to have some little creature that can blast through a tree like that, I just find that hilarious, personally.
One of my daughters is real tiny, and that's what it reminds me of, because she just gets this look of his, ecstasy on her face, like, I blew that up, like that would be her. I worry about that one. She takes after me too much.
So here we have Chasgo. This was done digitally by Erica Hollis in Chicago. What I wanted the picture to show, as we already talked about, he can don a persona. I wanted him putting his persona on as he was entering a lit room. Gotcha. So even though it's coincidence, just for a dramatic effect, it looks like the light is putting it on, but I just wanted to make it look like a weird contrast there. She did a great job. It was really hard finding. I wanted a dark room he was coming out of, but I didn't want it dead. So we discussed a couple different options, and eventually we settled on that green light just to highlight his profile. And I really like how it looked. One thing you'll see with him at all times is that chest piece around his neck is a rook. And that's actually his, in D&D, they call it an implement, but he actually needs that for all of his magic abilities.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Why a chess piece? We'll have to figure that out. No spoilers. No spoilers on the show, people. Read the story.
This is pretty good. This is the most I've been able to talk about this. I've been promoting this on other streams, but this is the first time we've dove into the comic a bit, which allows me to open up a bit, which is really nice. I've been very careful because I still have the better part of 2 months to promote this. I don't want to vomit it all out right now and then just repeat myself for the next 7-8 weeks.
Right. No, but this is a longer show, so we have time to kind of dig into the ins and outs of the story and the characters, and which is the fun stuff. Because I've been on shows that are 15 minutes, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna talk super fast. I'm like, because I gotta get it all out, right? So when you have a 2-hour show, it's like we can relax and we can talk about all the cool stuff, and people can get it here. It's like, and the shorter shows, you can be like, we got a campaign, we got things.
Elevator pitch done.
Right. And show's over. The end.
Yeah.
But they're all gorgeous. They're all gorgeous. And I like how, that your story is driven by this group of guys. And, and it's the dynamic between them that drives the story, and that they each got their own cover, because it's so important to build that character dynamic in that first issue. So you want people to be attached to those characters. You want them to understand that there's more to them and that we haven't gotten it all yet. So that way they want to come back and read more. So, and I think that you've done that really well with this first issue, that you've captured that just enough to get us interested, just enough so that we can see that the wheels are moving between the characters, and we want to know more. I want to know more. So
I think the reason that it went so well together is when writing this, I took it from a game master or dungeon master's perspective. And as I was saying earlier, the players write the story in a lot of cases. Sometimes you can, like one time I made a one-shot D&D campaign, and I had next to nothing for a setting. They all were under the impression they were invited to a noble's house. The house gets locked off. There's one cleric who's very powerful, and he says, one of you is trying to summon an evil deity at midnight. You're all going to tell me who it is, or I'm going to kill all of you.
Whoops.
And they all had to, they were all like doing this and this, and
he did it.
It lasted 3 hours, but that was the only content I brought forward to it, because I wanted to do it like a social experiment. But going back to how you mentioned that the characters in this comic drove forward, I put it in a dungeon master's perspective. If I know how these characters would act, the surrounding world, even though it exists, what would they do when you inject these different variables to them? And it seemed to work out well. I'm getting happy. I'm happy with the few reviews feedback, because not too many have seen this comic yet. But so far, it seems to be very promising.
So Ray, you've mentioned the comic and you've mentioned a game. Do you want to tell us about the game and what you're working on?
It's in prototype phase. It is coincidentally, it's also fan. Actually, no. I have two, but I'll speak about the one that I originally was talking about earlier. It's set in a summer camp setting, and it's horror themed.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes. So, the characters that you can play as, they all have different benefits. And one character, so it can be up to 7 players. One of the players has to be the slasher.
Nice.
So there's one of 5 slashers to pick. The mechanics I made to match any type of horror movie setting from the 80s. Didn't matter how slow or big or fast or small the threat was. They were always bam right there. And there's a dynamic involving light and stealth. And I can't really say too much more. It's basically, you're all in a camp, find some things, try and survive. That's the whole game.
You should definitely be friends with Christopher Brown, because you two think similarly along this tabletop game.
Right on.
Like with his Slaughterville world, he has a slasher one as well. Yeah, but it's similar but different. But I think that you guys would definitely vibe off of each other and probably inspire each other to level up. I think that would be fun to see what you guys could come up with. because he's the one that's doing the Slaughterville campaign that I'm Karen Needlemeyer in, and we have a blast. And he's so funny. Like we escaped because Pops's character shoved my fat butt out of a window last week, and we actually survived. But he was going to burn us all down in the. I lit the asylum on fire, thinking that was the solution. It was not, and then things were coming after us while they were on fire, and we just got lucky. We found the one escape route.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That sounds like a standard RPG setting.
See?
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, we had a blast, and my fat butt fit through the window because we rolled high enough, and we all escaped. That would have been terrible to because I went out first. If my character's fat butt got stuck and everybody burned to death inside, including my lower half of the body. But that could happen.
Were they like trying to eat you or just tear you to shreds? Or
They were trying to. So the surgeon was the main bad guy, and he was running this asylum, and he was looking for, I guess, a soul to replace his that was missing. And so the people that were in the asylum, he killed lots of people, and their bodies were all stacked up in the morgue. And they were haunting the asylum as well. So you could run into these characters, and they were trying to tell you to set them free. So eventually we got into the basement, and I ran into this room that smelled like rotting corpses, and I doused everything with gasoline and lit it on fire while the other characters cowered in the background because Karen is a boss babe and she's taking care of business, right? But as the place starts to go up in flames, like all these other characters, ghost minions of the surgeon, came out and were trying to drag us back into the morgue where everything was on fire. But we roll 20 was like blessed us on that last. We were rolling 1s and 2s the entire session until like the very end. We were rolling 10 we were rolling 10s, we were rolling D10s. So we actually got out through this window, but it was purely by chance. And Chris was all disappointed. Oh, I'm so sorry. For me, not for you. You get to escape, but damn it, he just wanted to like get us and.
I'm just imagining a bunch of undead trying to eat you instead of drag you in. Be like, put the Om Nom Nom in Necronomicon.
That's funny. But I love tabletop games. I want to talk. I've been talking with someone who shall remain nameless. I'm not going to drop names, but putting together a Path of the Pale Rider game.
Cool.
That would be a lot of fun. It's a 2-phase game where like the first phase is resource building and trading, and the second it's like trying to evade Big James as you try to. I can't say yet. We're not far enough into the story for me to say, but all good stuff. So when people are like, yeah, I'm developing a game, that's crazy to me. I'm like, I don't think I could develop the game and all the rules and board and pieces and how it all works together. I'm like, I'm just here to contribute. Like, well, these are my characters you can use, and this would be fun. But then like someone else builds the game for me because it just sounds like it would be difficult to put it all together. But I think your brain just works differently. You know what I mean? Like I can't.
I'm a Red Seal tool and die maker, and
okay.
one of it's a branch off a machinist, and there's a lot of order of operations.
Yes.
So in a lot of cases, you're continuously thinking to not metaphorically paint yourself in a corner.
Yes.
And I think part of that applies over to something like game mechanics in making a tabletop game.
Interesting.
I think you're always playing devil's advocate on what you have set up. So in a lot of game testing, you're always reaching out to others to find flaws. I think in a lot of cases, before I even get to that point, I'm preemptively always devil's advocating. Will this work? Or have I left myself high and dry in a scenario?
You have like a set list of beta testers that you go to, like, play this game, see what you think.
Well, I much like this comic, this is my first board game that I would be going to full throttle with.
Uh-huh.
I'm also working on one with another person at the same time, which involves literally a very powerful archmage who's dead, and 6 players are trying to get into the vault and take the treasures. And this vault is continuously shifting. There's a big baddie, which is a black dragon, which can at times come and get you. And all 6 characters are representative of different realms, nobody would ever touch this mage. But now that he's dead, let's see what toys he has. And everybody's fighting to get in there first.
Interesting.
Pretty wild. But
I don't know what I would compare that to.
it's pretty unique. The person I've been working with, he's been a good imagination. Again, the whole collaboration, it's really good to bounce ideas back and forth accordingly.
So with the Madcaps, I'm going to switch gears again. This is issue 1. You said out of a 3-issue run.
Yes.
Is there a time frame when we will see the next one?
That depends how the Kickstarter does.
Yeah.
So this one took 2 years, and you've kind of hinted at hiring talent sometimes takes time, be it scheduling or financial. But with that said, how this one does will definitely gauge how long it's going to take to do the next one.
Gotcha. And then, of course, the third one. Do you have another script that you're working on? Because I'm assuming that the script for Madcaps is done because you said it's 3. Yeah. I would figure it's done.
It's done. Again, going back to Philbo Publishing for taking me on. I reached out to Phil Russert for opinion on art and how things were going, and eventually I let him read all 3 issues in the script.
Yeah.
And he liked it so much he took me on. So there's definitely room for refinement on these 3 issues, but the meat and potatoes of the story is finished, that's for sure. I've set it up in such a way I want it to be its own thing. Like we were talking about earlier, I just wanted to be able to express something and have it worthy of the comic world. As of right now, I have no idea if I do anything after it. It all depends on, I just wanted this to be a thing to be done. Like I said, it's supposed to be an homage between how friends treat each other and work with each other and how they influence each other. If it's successful enough, I'm definitely open to continuing it. And it's set up in a way where the world existed beforehand and that world exists after the story. But right now, these 3 issues are my only focus.
Gotcha. I was just curious if you were writing in other genres as well, because if you have a game that's horror, are you also writing in horror genre or comedy or sci-fi or?
Well, with horror, the Evan Quiring, who has been doing the art for that, the art is pretty much finished. He told me, based off of the 5 slashers you can choose from, he said it would make an excellent comic book. So I've never really dabbled in horror, but I like the concept of that one thing coming for you. My friends and I, we used to play this game called Sold Out. It's like the best game nobody knows about. In it, there's one bot, like one character that you can play with or against. It's like arena and teams and stuff. There's all these different weapons. So you have like literally an RPG, minigun, Desert Eagles, but this one character called the Boogeyman has a chainsaw, which seems ridiculous. But if he gets you, it's like pretty much an instant kill because it's a chainsaw.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious the person that designed this character, Boogeyman, based it off of slashers from the 80s. They're always coming. They're always coming after you. They're right there. Maybe you can throw things at it and hurt it a bit, but it keeps coming. And
it'll just come back next time. You know what I mean? That's the hard part with those is this, you can't really get away.
Yeah, so that dynamic that we're describing between the two of us, I tried to convert into a board game, which I think I'm almost there.
You know, it's funny because the Madcaps is based off of a campaign. What if you develop the board game for the slasher and you let people play and then a story evolves from there? That you could then translate into your next comic book. So
that would be interesting. I mean, obviously for copyright reasons, I couldn't use already established slashers, but they're definitely inspired by other characters. I have, I'll describe it. There's a level of comedy. It's almost like not Evil Dead, but Evil Dead 2 level comedy horror balance.
Okay.
I've got one character that's literally a voodoo doll, which is a reflection of Chucky, if you will.
Yes.
And it literally has a pin, like a voodoo doll pin, but it uses it to stab people. I tried to keep them creative, but obviously it shows where I'm getting my inspiration from. There's another one. It's based off of Leatherface, and the story is it worked in a meat processing plant. The meat processing plant shuts down, and this individual blames young folks for the growing trend in veganism and why he's unemployed.
He kills vegans.
So he views young kids as all vegans. So at the camps, young kids, he has a chainsaw, but instead of a leather mask made out of human skin, it's literally the face of a bull. And instead of Leatherface, I called him Hidehead.
Ha.
So it's very obvious. It's very obvious.
Like,
it's a reflection of Leatherface, but it's its own satire thing.
but it's funny. He kills vegans.
Yeah, well, he's unemployed and he blames vegans for it. So that's his road to madness.
Right. That's funny. I'm just trying to pick your brain to see what else, can come out of there. Is there anything, would you ever go back to superhero genre? And if you did, what would that look like?
If I did something superhero related, for me, character has to be unique. The powers have all been done. I say that sarcastically. That isn't 100% true. I've already used Invincible as an example, but I'll do it anyways. Invincible, there's no unique powers in that. Compared to Marvel and DC, it's been done, for lack of better wording.
Yeah.
In that case, it's all about the characters. So if I were to do my own superhero store, I would need a unique characters and unique setting. So I probably would not put the heroes in a metropolis setting. I would probably do something different. I don't know what that would be. I don't know if it would be like a group of towns, because I think that would be interesting, say, on the southern states in regards to issues involving drug cartels. I think that would be neat, because it's not a bunch of buildings. It's actually a lot of open areas. And how would that have an influence on things? You have some do-gooder trying to do vigilante work, and you're like, I think the first thing that comes to mind is, I think the biggest threat wouldn't be drug cartels. It would be Homeland Security trying to get you to stop from being a vigilante. So that would be one example. It would have to be something so unique of a setting and the characters to make it believable that you're not even thinking about the powers.
So the powers would actually be secondary to the story.
Yes.
Interesting. I'm trying to think about like stuff that we consumed in like the 90s as kids, like X-Men. There was a story. They all had powers. The powers were kind of secondary to what they were trying to accomplish. So,
and I mean, for the really younger groups that were fans of those cartoons, there's still the action. There's still the powers.
Right.
But the very first episode, it's called Night of the Sentinels. One of the things that always stuck out with me, it was cool. Like I was reading these comic books, so seeing the powers, it was cool to see it animated, but I wasn't impressed by anything new. But with that said, spoiler alert for anybody who's never seen this cartoon.
Yeah, come on now. It's been from the 90s.
When Morph gets killed by the Sentinels, and then Cyclops and Wolverine have an argument, Wolverine punches him right in the diaphragm and knocks the wind out of him, and he falls over. There's no powers going on there, really.
Right.
But that had a really heavy influence on me. I thought it was very neat, because we're talking about individuals that happen to have powers. Like we don't have any story where it revolves around people that work at an orange factory. We're all orange factory workers. And in my mind, the same thing with superpowers, because it's been so well established and done. Talking about their powers, it hits as shallow as focusing on orange factory workers.
I'm interested in how storytelling evolves, how different genres evolve. And I've talked about this before for myself, because zombie genre and horror genre, how it has evolved. But superheroes have evolved as well. I mean, like some of the newer stuff that we're getting is like very dark. So I'm wondering, kind of where
there's a contrast there. Some of them are dark, but it's also proven that if done properly, the antithesis to dark, it does work well. So first example that comes
Maybe
to
it's just
mind.
me. Yeah, give me an example.
Example, the very first Captain America. So this is about an individual that wants to do right. He feels morally obligated, gets the opportunity, and is injected with superhero steroids, for lack of better wording.
Right.
And I compare that to, everybody knows the story, The Little Engine That Could. I think I can.
Yeah.
If you gave that personality superpowers, would they still stay in such a positive manner? He wears bright clothes. He has a bright attitude. He's not oblivious to the darkness around him, but he chooses to be an influence on other people that if I wasn't around, they're probably going to do the bad thing too. But at least I'm an example where people can now make a choice. Well, maybe I want to do a nicer form of behavior, choice towards others. Another good example of this is...
But that's a legacy character, Ray. I'm talking about, like, it went from stuff like that to, like, the Watchmen and then to the Boys. You know what I mean? It has escalated to the anti-hero, to the hero.
I understand.
And not just like, because Watchmen was more like, we're trying to be heroes, but we're complicated and we have a past. The Boys, they don't even try to be heroes anymore. And what they do in their, free time is just demented. How power is corrupting. You know what I mean?
I think there's definitely a lot of societal reflections on this, but again, I've already used up the example of Invincible.
Right, that too. Where it's
he chooses to be very clean cut, despite the bad things around him. But like you pointed out, we wouldn't be seeing Omni-Man killing the Guardians of the Globe in the 1950s. So obviously there's been definitely a shift, like you're saying.
Yeah, so where does it go next is the question. That's always the question, is, you know what I mean? Because with me, it was like zombies, where it's like, okay, we had voodoo zombies, and then we had slow-moving undead, then we have faster-moving undead, then we had virus, right? Like 28 days later. Fungus
and The Last of Us.
Yeah. Right? So, and then we've had, it's weird how things go from scary to scarier and then to love interest. Vampires, werewolves, they all follow this thing. And then we had like iZombie. Like, how can you make a zombie a freaking love interest? Like, that to me was insane.
Nicholas Hoult, I think, played that one.
Yes. Warm Bodies. It happens. Like, there's kid shows. My kids were watching a show. It's like zombie something. It's a girl and a zombie. It's a freaking kid.
It's dead.
Yeah. And the guy is a zombie and he has green hair, but he's someone's boyfriend. And I'm like, that's just ridiculous. So, but then it's like, where I'm trying to take it to the next level, So it's like, where does superheroes go? We've gone from all good to complicated to all bad. And now it's like, okay, where do we go from there?
Well, I think there's definitely there's the metaphorical pendulum.
Yeah,
I think the reason now I used legacy characters as an example, but I'll use them.
That's a great example too, where it's like if you're around long enough, then you become the villain in your own story, right?
Like a Two-Face in The Dark Knight.
Yes.
But if you look at something like 2002 Spider-Man, that was successful. I already made the joke. From like 98 to 2003, X-Men were all in black leather, Blade, Underworld, The Matrix.
I love all of those movies.
I think there's the newest trend. I think it saturates, then it dies back a bit, and it stays, and it's consistent. And I've if that wasn't true, things like Spider-Man and Captain America wouldn't be successful to right now.
Yeah.
So I guess going back on what you were originally asking, what would be the next trend? Like, where would you go from there with superheroes? I don't know. I think it's becoming more. I think people are more interested in a character as opposed to the realm around them. Like why is this person now dark? So a really good character development story I really like since I was a kid and saw it as a cartoon. Disney's Gargoyles. You ever watch that one?
Yes, they're bringing that back too.
Hopefully they do it properly, but Hopefully it takes place in 1994. But when I first saw that and I watched that entire series through, I absolutely loved the development of Demona, one of the villains, Goliath's former flame. When you first see her in the first season, it's very, very, it isn't excessively mysterious, but you're drawn into why is she like this and what? You weren't asleep for the last 1,000 years? What the heck's going on? And then you go through her entire suffering, the entire story of the love of my life is stone for the rest of my life. I live out my bitter age. I allied myself with humans and that fell through, and then I'm granted my youth again, and I can't die unless the person I'm bonded to kills me, and I hate humans, and all of the intricate little details. Although I've classified her to you as a villain, at that point, I'm just classifying this person as this tragic character, which I understand. And how do you rein in a person like that? Because at that point, I've got a high level of empathy while at the same time rooting for the good guys. And as a kid, I always thought that was very neat. It's like, well, she's not evil. She's just been dealt a bad hand. How do we work with this?
Give us ladies a break, man. We're complicated. We got lots of stuff going on in there.
But even there's at one episode, I forget the details off the top of my head, but she actually has a cataclysmic event that's to happen to the city, and a villain and the gargoyles have to work together. They eventually are able to coax her out of what the password is to unlock to stop this problem from happening. And she sits there and she's just a dead expression. She says, alone. And I'm just thinking, gee, I just feel really bad for her, even though she's the villain. So I think the focus is going to be less on bad versus good, where you had I'm going to call them false binaries, where kids need to know morals. And it was good to see these stories at earlier times try to do the right thing, which is what these stories were attempting to do. But I think a lot of people, not even just anti-hero, but any people, I have a challenge here. Even though I'm not perfect, maybe I'll try to do the right thing or learn from my mistakes. I think people are more inclined to champion those type of dynamics that they can relate to and not over-focus on everybody's bad per se. I hit my microphone.
You're fine.
But I think people are more inclined to see when you buy into a character, well, if they're my champion, I want to see them successful. I want to see them happy. Villains usually aren't happy. And if there's some way to...
if they are happy, we're all in trouble.
This is also true. But yeah, I think character is the biggest focus right now for superheroes.
Yeah.
I think especially the last decade, there's been a lot of focus on large scale events, threat to the planet, threat to the universe, threat to the multiverse.
Yes.
And I think it's
a lot of that.
I think it's stale. I mean, there's still cool things that can be done with it, but I think the focus is going to shift. I remember in the 90s when we had Age of Apocalypse in Marvel Comics.
Yep.
And the Clone Saga, and everything became larger and larger scale. I remember I think it was 93, the Maximum Carnage saga, which took place over 5 different issues over the course of 3 or 4 months. It was like 20 issues, and you had to be jumping back and forth all the time. That was cool at the time. It became stale, and people didn't want to really have interest in that anymore. And I think the next trend is focusing on the individual and not so much the universe around the individual and how do they fit.
That's hard. I think that let's say I'm going to use Disney as an example. They've been trying to do stuff like that.
Here's a Canadian reference there.
There's Tim Hortons. Hey, I'm a native Michigander, so there's tons of Tim Hortons in Michigan. We love our Timmy Horton. I'm in Texas now, and there's 0 Tim Hortons, and we are very sad. There's no. I was
born in Hamilton, where the first Tim Hortons was raised 60 years ago.
It's like hockey and Tim Hortons. There you go. And saying you're sorry.
And apologizing, yes.
And
Expressive apologizing.
I'm
Yes.
sorry for apologizing. Good times, good times. Yeah, I mean, like we were 19 and crossing the bridge and going to, the casino and having good times from Detroit. It was good times. Not anymore. But anyway, back to comics. I was going to say Disney, I think, has been trying to do more of like small stories about individual characters, and they're trying to find. I think DC has been doing that too, like Blue Beetle, and they just haven't been successful yet. I don't know if they just aren't grabbing the right character, or we just haven't shifted our mindset yet, or what.
Well, I'll give you an example.
I'm having trouble switching off from Endgame.
The character Luke Cage in the mid-2000s, Brian Michael Bendis brought him into the New Avengers at the time when Thor was obsolete. And they brought in also Spider-Man and Wolverine. What Brian Michael Bendis did for Luke Cage, Luke Cage had a following, but he was really considered a B-tier character for fans. And in my opinion, there was a big spike in popularity, and it was simply because of what Brian Michael Bendis did. You mentioned Blue Beetle and a couple other things that Disney has tried. Well, Disney bought out Marvel in 2012.
Yeah.
And the Marvel Cinematic Universe existed before 2012. And I think, like, I don't know because I'm not Disney, but I'm under the impression Disney let Marvel finish what it was doing up to Endgame before doing any of its own things. Now, there's a lot of debate. There's lots of joy and angst towards what Disney has done with Marvel post Endgame. I think what Disney has tried, and they tried it with Star Wars, is they're taking a lot of things that were considered at one point niche that has grown to its own thing and then buying it. And they've tried to apply their formula onto those things. And I think it had mixed results. I think that's the biggest problem. Even though Blue Beetle is not part of the MCU, it's very clear that there's a lot of influence of competitors to be like Marvel. And I don't think Blue Beetle deserved that.
Yeah.
I guess the best way to put it, imagine any Marvel movie done post-Endgame. I mean, some of it's very successful. The level of humor with the level of seriousness, with the level of character interaction, yada, yada, yada. Now imagine applying that to something like Frank Castle. It's going to fail.
Can you imagine?
Disney usually has bring in a cute sidekick. For the Mandalorian, successful example, Mandalorian has Grogu.
Exactly.
It works.
But Frank Castle, not so much.
So I saw on YouTube once, I forget the animator, but he made What If the Watchmen was a Saturday morning cartoon? And he made like an introduction show, an intro rather. And it's really funny because all the things that made it successful, well, we got rid of that because we want to be more appealing to kids. It's really, really funny.
Oh my gosh. But
you brought up some examples like Blue Beetle, and I brought up Luke Cage. Luke Cage, for people to establish a character and bring them up to the front, it's got to be unique. Luke Cage was unique. I think one of the pinnacles for getting more recognition on him was during Civil War in the comics. Where it says, I want them to see, I want everybody around here in Harlem to see what they're going to do to me. Because that's the only way to convince these people that this is a bad thing. And I'm like, well, that's very interesting. For somebody to be that tough and selfless and step up and, okay, I'm going to be arrested or whatever. Yeah, we're going to let this happen. I think that was a big pinnacle for popularity with Luke Cage. And it seems like current movies are falling short of that dynamic.
Yeah, I agree. You know what, Ray? I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but we're in the last 4 minutes of the show. I just happened to look up and I was like, oh, crap. So I wanted to make sure I got this on the screen. Everybody, this is where you sign up for the Madcaps. There is the link. Please go sign up for notification. That would be great. We could get Ray to 100 followers before he launches. That's always a good feeling, man.
That'd be awesome.
So make sure you go sign up for that. And then when it launches, we can go walk around and go shopping together. Ray, where can people follow you on social media so that way they don't miss out on anything?
So you can find me on Facebook, assuming it's functioning again, which is, you can find me as DM Ray, as it shows on my name in the, there it is there. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter under Raymond the DM. DM Ray was taken. But Raymond the DM, you can find me on there. You can also find the Madcaps page on Facebook. And obviously, Filbo Publishing as well. They're definitely going to be giving out information about my upcoming book. Just very excited to finally cross this metaphorical finish line.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to show you a video real quick as you're preparing for your Kickstarter. This is a pretty apt description of what you're going to go through.
Nose and lips. Okay, ow. Can I? Ow, ow, ow. Ow! Wait! Ow! 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 Please, Mr. Oh!
Next campaign. You know
Right
what?
in
It's
the
funny to
face.
say that you are the first of 3 interviews I have today.
See, I was going to say, it's what it
And
feels
tomorrow,
like. They're all going to be flying at you at the same time.
Anybody watching this, I forgot to say as well, later this month, I will be releasing it. We're recording it tomorrow, and I have to edit it. We're actually, myself, some pros from California, and a couple of comic artists are going to be doing a one-shot campaign, and it's a prequel to the comic book. So if you are not sure if you want to buy into this comic, you can watch the campaign, and it'll give you a flavor of what the comic's about.
Very cool. Well, that was an awesome show. And again, I feel, Ray, like we could seriously just sit and talk about comics and where they're going and history and, you know, all of that. We could talk about all that for hours and hours. So I appreciate you being on the show. You are always welcome back on the show.
Awesome.
I'm excited to see when this launches. We can follow along and see, you know, how everything goes. And I wish you the most success, you know, as you go on your journey.
That's another Canadian thing, the thank yous. I'm told that's a Canadian thing as well.
And thank you, everybody in the chat. Thank you for watching. And again, we will be back next week with more indie creators here on the Tuesday Morning Brew. Don't forget to hit that like button on the way out and be excellent to each other. Collect some knives and kiss your babies. See you next week.
But you are ashamed, and comics are your estate. Put a little madness in your life. Come give your mind a cleanse. Tune in with pops and friends. Just turn on your ROKU box and then put a little madness in your life. Put a little madness in your life. Yeah, yeah, put a little madness in your life.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add more.
Visit